Florian Bohn, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So I was looking at all the information on you, and you're quite the accomplished engineer, and you've done all these cool things. And one thing, been working on a problem of transferring energy from space onto Earth. And that's really interesting and great and all, but I just like to be able to transfer energy from the socket to my cell phone without a stupid cord hanging everywhere and tripping over. Why can't you focus on something like that?
That's actually exactly what we're focusing on at Guru. So the project from space that you were talking about was the project that we worked on at Caltech. It's the same technology, except a different scale. But yes, we're absolutely working on transferring your power from your socket to your cell phone so you don't have to plug it in.
Well, there you go. I appreciate that. That's really something that I think, I hate cords. I've got cords everywhere. You can't wipe your desk down because the dust is under the cords. And when you do, you knock stuff over. But imagine having to run a big extension cord from space to Earth. Where would you plug it in? That's been a consideration, has it not?
Yeah, I mean, the cord in space, so to speak, is plugged into the sun. So the project that we were working on and that's still an ongoing project at Caltech, except that I've left it to start the company. The plug basically was the sun. So the idea was to convert solar energy to microwave energy, form a beam, and be able to steer it to different locations on Earth. Mainly not so much to charge people's cell phones just from space, but more so to provide power to difficult to reach locations. So for example, in disaster areas and so on.
So that seems like a James Bond situation, and is like a little dangerous. You couldn't fly a plane through that area because it would like slice you in half like some mega weapon. No,
it's you can kind of think of it as the sun and the power density of the sun. So if you're flying through sunlight, it doesn't cook you or destroy your planes. Solar energy actually has quite a bit of power. So if the power levels if you're talking about are similar, the advantage or the idea to do this with microwaves, you may ask, well, why not just use the sunlight? Is so when you don't have sunlight, right? So sunlight has a lot of variation. Clouds will block it.
Exactly.
You have this day and night cycle kind of thing. If you're just beaming it 24/7, and if you can determine or select where it's going to go on Earth, let's say you have a disaster area somewhere, you gain a lot more freedom.
Yeah, so I'm kind of being facetious, but so you are the co-founder and CEO of a company called Guru Inc., GURU Incorporated. And tell us a little bit more about Guru and what you guys are developing over there. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, so at Guru, we basically are developing this technology. We are productizing it. The history of Guru goes back to Caltech. We started active development of the core technology 2011, 2012. I joined full-time a little bit later in 2013, right around when my daughter was born, actually. But the applications are manifold. So you can think of large scale from satellite, but most people care about their cell phones. If you ask people, let's say you have this hammer, what can I do with it? Most people will ask, okay, can I charge my phone and can I charge my car? And the phone, yes, the car you can, but it's probably not the best way. There are better ways of doing it. So it's phones, it's sensors, there are lots of things where it's actually very expensive to run cables, or it's really annoying, or both, or change batteries. So those are the applications that we are mainly targeting.
So for the audience that's listening, what Florian is working on bringing to market is it's similar to a Wi-Fi router. There was a time where you had to plug in your devices to receive the internet, and then all of a sudden this cool thing that you just plugged into your cable coming in, and you can walk anywhere and have internet on your phone. And so this would be the Wi-Fi version of sending charging power to your battery operated devices, correct?
Correct. You're doing such a better job of explaining it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's I guess we kind of jumped right in, but this is exactly the right image. It's you have a router, instead of data, you're sending power. You have client devices that you want to get rid of having to plug them in, and those are the recipients of power. And the idea is that you don't have to worry about it, and it's basically present, and your phones are always charged, your sensors are always powered, and so on.
That's so cool. I've gone to like these conferences, and they're all day, and you're checking your phone and you're doing stuff, and your phone doesn't last all day. And so everybody's standing around by some plug-in by the bathroom just to get another 10 minutes of power to make it through another 30 minutes. And I just see your device as being like this, just this aha, you'd want to go to that conference because you never have to worry about plugging your phone in.
Yeah, when we went out pitching for money, I had this facetious slide. I'm a Star Trek fan, so this is a Star Trek example, but it was Captain Picard showing off his tricorder to, I guess, some alien and saying, I would show you all the cool features, but I've just forgotten to charge it up last night. And the idea that, if you're flying a starship around, but your tricorder doesn't work or whatever it is,
right?
It's silly, but it's not true. A 21st century idea, right? The speed with which technology changes is very rapid if you think about it, right? If you think about, your smartphone, when did that come to market? That was in 2007. So you and I are old enough to remember what it was like not to have this thing, right? Or not to have internet. I don't know about you, but I certainly remember the first time I logged into the internet and seeing this change live, essentially, right? You kind of, with these sort of like fundamental changes in how we do things, you kind of get a feeling, or at least I do, like goosebumps almost. You really see this is a step function in how we're going to be doing things in the future. And go ahead.
No, it makes total sense. And it's like almost expected, is it? Even though this is a great idea, and I'm glad to see someone working on it, it's like, where have you been? What's been taking you so long to get this handled?
Well, the idea is actually older, right? So if you, Nikola Tesla certainly, I think, was the first one to actively, he was actively pursuing this idea. This idea of beaming power from space, I think, goes back to a short story by Isaac Asimov. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, it seems very natural, right? Why do we have to handle this cumbersome cables and all of that, different standards? The practical implementation is obviously a little bit tricky, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing it now versus people having done this 100 years ago. So but it's like many things today that are on the surface very easy to use, or just they immediately obvious, but the what's under the hood takes a lot of time and effort, and also some developments that are just not under the control of the entrepreneur, right? Like advances in computing power, material processing, and all of those things. So right now these are all coming together. Plus we came out of Caltech, so we have quite a world-class team of minds having worked on this for a long time, to make something that's practical and useful, and not just sort of like more of a lab experiment, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. So the folks that listen to this, the ideas are easy. Everyone has a great idea. I have a drawer full right here that we can start to review, but actually starting to make movement and align resources means that you have to have some influential power to persuade people to buy into the idea, to align and attract resources, and to go through these challenges of bringing this product to market, right? And so tell us a little bit about how did you get from this concept of an idea to actually get people to start to focus and invest money, time, and energy and expertise into this?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually was pitched the idea myself. I didn't start out right from the start. So the idea was pitched to me by my former Ph.D. advisor and now co-founder Ali Hajimiri. And to me, it made sense. It was a conversation in a sushi store, and I thought about it, and it took me maybe a day or so to say, okay, there are lots of things that have to come together, but overall it's sound. That's certainly not true with everyone. And I think that's a good sign. So many people you talk to will say this is not, they will come up with all sorts of reasons why this doesn't work. It's too expensive, it's not feasible, it's physically impossible. So the physically impossible, we can do away with that very quickly. And I think this is a good sign. If you have the right idea and also the right argumentation or arguments why your idea will actually work, and it's not just something. I mean, we have all sorts of ideas, right? I want to have a hoverboard that, beams me to, or transports me to work or something like that, or beams me from, but many of these just don't work. You meet a lot of people that will tell you these things, and in a ratio of, I want to say 10 to 1, right? Like out of 9 people, not like your average person on the street that would say this is a great idea, but I don't understand how one would do this. But you do meet this resistance. I think this is a good sign of that you're on the right track, because if you have the right idea, all that matters is that you're right? If you're Albert Einstein, you have an idea of how gravity works. Even if everyone else thinks you're wrong, at the end of the day, what matters is whether you can do it. The way I would pitch it is that there are sort of practical aspects and fundamental aspects. So we pitched VCs in 2017 at a time when it became clear that we can't just sort of work on it in the research lab. We've made tremendous advances, but we needed to scale. We needed to just solve some more practical problems. And some VCs will say, this is not our cup of tea, or this is not our area. But if you talk to enough people, you'll find these people that sort of get it, right? Or at least that's what you hope for, right? that you're right, and that those are the people that get it then. And you just work with that. The same is true with customers, partners. There are many conversations that start out with no way or no. And in some way, it's actually good to hear that no first. Like, you don't typically hear a yes first, right? You want to hear that no first, because that makes the other person think, that makes the other person say, like, okay, I have the freedom to, this doesn't make sense to me. And then it starts to make sense to a lot of people. And again, I'm mostly talking about financing or customer and partners and so on.
So would you say you're more an engineer or a research scientist? What was your first iteration after kind of starting to see yourself in the professional world?
It's actually an interesting question. I would not define myself as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I am an entrepreneur.
Right.
I'm not like a full-time entrepreneur. I'm doing this because I think it's actually addressing a need.
Yes.
And if I didn't have anything else, I would be doing something else. I would view myself as sort of, I'm scientifically interested. I'm an engineer. I like things. I like serving needs. So I worked at a company close to 20 years ago now. We made components for cell phones, first CMOS power amplifiers, and we sold about 400 million of these. And the fact that there were at some point in time, maybe a couple of 100 million phones out there with our component in there, and it served a need. People wanted this for whatever reason. They didn't, most consumers wouldn't say, you know, we want this particular power amplifier, but through the fact that they purchased the phones and the suppliers provided them with those, it gives me tremendous satisfaction to know that what I've been doing is useful to others. I'm very utilitarian that way. You know, it doesn't mean that I don't do things that are just interesting to me, but professionally, I like to do things that, you know, make other people happy at the end of the day. So that's how I would define myself.
Well, I like
people happy.
I like what you're saying, because I think I believe that the invisible heroes of the American economy, especially, are entrepreneurs. But I would believe most of them would say, well, I didn't start off saying, hey, Mom, I'm an entrepreneur. They were like starting a business because they saw a need and wanted to provide a solution and pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same experience that you're having as well. But yet, let's be honest, you're having to start to change your self-identity into seeing yourself as, yeah, I'm an engineer, but also I need to be able to speak entrepreneur and swim in those waters. No?
It's just a different language, or a different, you're trying to solve a problem. So maybe I view myself as a problem solver. I don't care what that problem is. It has to be interesting and it has to serve a purpose. So at the end of the day, many things have to come together to make a successful product. It's not just engineering, right? You can have the best engineering piece in the world, but if no one knows about it because you're not doing marketing, what's the use of it, right? If you're sitting on an island and so on, you need to have marketing experience. You need to think about it strategically, and ultimately, I enjoy that. I enjoy doing something that maybe pushes me a little bit out of my comfort zone. It's a lot of work. It's like, you know, it's not satisfactory most of the times, but you know, but at the end of the day, it pays off, right? Because it's a real struggle, and you know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many times you think, how am I going to solve this problem, right? and
right.
I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, and I don't have the right people. But if you just sort of think about it, most likely there's a solution. And after you've done it once, then you want to have a new challenge, right? So whatever terminology or addressing people that are coming from a different background than you, I think that comes naturally with it. You just sort of pick it up as you go along, right?
So I think of an engineer needing to start to step into being comfortable with marketing, kind of like these in Star Trek, where you have these species that are higher intellect trying to talk to humans, right? And so being an engineer is like having that, you know, this higher intellect in a way, but now you got to speak marketing. How do you talk to us about that transition?
I don't think this is true. I think, no, so there are many forms of like intelligence, and just because you're a great engineer or, you're great in one thing doesn't mean that people who are great in very different, sort of like a different skill set, they're just as smart as you. They just have learned something else, right? So I think you just approach it with curiosity, right? What is the need that you're addressing, right? Like if let's say if we're talking about marketing, what's marketing? Well, marketing is you're offering something and you want someone else to buy it. But really, what you should be wanting is you should be wanting to understand what the other person's problem is, right? So one book, I've read a couple of books, and there's only so much you can get through books. There's only so much you can find out yourself, so you have to kind of do a little bit. But Eric Ries's book, The Lean Startup, he had a very interesting thought in it, which was that the marketing process is really a scientific discovery process. Because you don't know what your customers want. I don't know what my customers want. No one knows that. How do we find out? We find out what works and what doesn't work, right? If we show them here, this is the best thing, and they say no, go home, and then you have to think, okay, what is it that I need to improve? What is it that works? And that's how you get to perfection of a product, right? And this is why it's so immensely difficult. This is why we advance as a society. If you look at a smartphone, right, it's so complicated, and there's so many things that are just right. And on the surface of it, it seems obvious and easy, but it's a process of iteration, right? Before Apple, let's say, had the iPhone, there was it the Newton? Didn't work, right? And it just takes that. So that thought that the marketing it's really a scientific discovery process, other than it's not laws of nature, it's just people's desires and fears and whatever pockets, money spending habits that you're addressing, doesn't make it less of a scientific discovery process. And so that's very satisfactory to me, since I'm an engineer and scientist.
That's cool. So in Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1, he talks about the process that you're going through, that if you don't consider the marketing aspect of this product in the design phase of this, you're setting yourself up for failure. And what's interesting to me is how someone from your background, you would have never said, Mom, I'm gonna also be really good at marketing, right? But there was this time it was starting to be obvious to you where you got to go, Mom, I have to figure out this marketing thing. When did that happen for you?
Well, for me, it happened, I guess, last year, where, because we started the company, we've done some marketing effort, but I transitioned from a more engineering role to like a marketing role or a business development role. Let's call it that. It just has to be done, and it's happening. I'm hiring people to help me, trusted advisors. You ask friends who have done this, and that's how you learn. And but again, it's a learning process, and I don't know, these sort of things, I just find them naturally interesting. Let's say we have a customer conversation, it didn't go too well. Next time I know why this particular one didn't go too well, most likely it was because the customer wanted something and we were just too boneheaded to get it right. It's like, oh no, we really care about this and not this. And if you don't, I think there's no point in like overthinking it. Just do it, right?
Yeah.
Have fun doing it, and you might as well enjoy it and learn as you go.
So now you're talking about sales. And this is another thing that maybe even if you realized you needed to be good at sales, you wouldn't like brag to Mom, I'm going to be a great salesperson, right? But it's in play.
But sales is actually an interesting challenge, right? If you think about it, it's actually something I would probably want to do if, let's say, I had infinite money and nothing to do. Just sign up, like get employed as the lowest salesperson for a mattress store, right? And just get that right. How do you sell a mattress to someone, even if they don't need one, right? And again, sale is a conviction. Like you have to convince someone, right? Or you have to discover what they need, and so that's a challenge, and I like challenges. I think again, I'm not like a one-man show here at the company. The people that help me in their areas that other people maybe more experienced or better at, and it's important to have a team, and that the team works well, and that you sent the right person for the right job, so to speak.
But the natural, even though you hired a salesperson that actually is probably very well, but they haven't sold this product before, right? And so the natural tendency is to go, we got to bring Florian to this meeting. Well, now you're in a sales role, And you can't stay just on the technical plane. You need to be reading the room. You need to be understanding what's the real thing they're wondering about, instead of just do the technical dump of all of the features that this thing will happen. So actually, you have to be the salesperson for a little bit until the
Yeah.
people that you hire settle in and feel confident that they can do this without needing you for backup. No?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's an important customer meeting, it's up to everyone to make sure that we understand the need and do a sale. And again, I would call it more listening, right? What is it that if someone talks to you, it's they come in, they have something in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the worst case, it's they want to find out how they can whatever get from you or something, right? But that's again a sale, right?
Yeah.
It's finding out what is it that the other side want, what is it that we want, and how do you sort of get to the best outcome. And sometimes you don't make a sale now, maybe it makes more sense to make a sale later. But it's again, I think of it as a discovery process, or just understanding what is it that where you have a mutually beneficial interaction, right? Because obviously the other side will always take something for free. Obviously you would sell it for infinite amount of money. But that's not how a sale happens. You buy something because you value your money less than the thing you get, and the other side values the money more than the thing they're selling you. And so it's a win-win situation always. And trying to find that win-win is sort of the process. And yes, in that sense, I'm a salesperson.
So in the journey of developing this product from a prototype to actually in use, you think about positioning. Talk to us about in one of these sales conversations where you had an epiphany about you initially had envisioned it being used in this application, but then all of a sudden the person on the other end asked a question that made the light bulb go off, that maybe you were going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I'm trying to, and this certainly happens. This happens all the time. I don't know if I have like an example that specifically sort of brings out an epiphany, but yeah, you go into a conversation, you think, oh, this would be perfect for XYZ, and then the other side doesn't think so, and they talk about something, and all of a sudden you think, oh, if it could do this as well, or if we focus the effort on this particular aspect, then all of a sudden you have like a whole new product or a whole new sort of added feature to it. One of the technology itself that we're using, it can send wireless power. It can do other things as well. For example, as part of we sort of have some redundant sensing mechanism, because you want to know if someone sticks their hand into the phone, if the power is being interrupted, and so on. So there are things where customers have asked, oh, can it do this, right? Like, can it? And I don't want to, because most of these conversations are active, ongoing conversations. I don't want to give a
Yes.
specific example, but it happens all the time, right? Most of the times it's just hearing what people struggle with. An easy example, I guess, that I'm not giving too much away is how expensive it is if you have, let's say, a retail store, and you want to have electronic shelf labels or displays.
Oh.
How expensive it is to change batteries. Or let's say you have our technology and you want to have a shelf label that only turns on when someone is actually looking at it, right? So that this is a freebie that comes with it, because you can kind of detect, okay, there's someone in front of it, so let's just turn it on. Or maybe detect how they're interacting with it, right? Are they actively engaged? Particularly for some of these shelf labels that are in high-end electronics store, you have very sophisticated, engaging customers. And so you think about how, like, these sort of things weren't obvious to me. There are things like, I just wrote byline for an automotive magazine that wiring is tens of pounds in a car.
Yeah.
You know, it's so you actually, if let's say you have a wireless power solution and you're actually increasing the fuel efficiency of the car almost, right? Because if
Mhm.
the car weighs less, because you're replacing all the wires, then you have to you have less drag and you have to lug less weight around. And yeah, so they're always you never know what someone really wants until you talk to them, and until you get down to the nitty gritty of the customer conversation.
Excellent. So one of the things I think that leaders really struggle with is clearly communicating the value of what you have to offer or where the vision for the company is to go. Talk to us a little bit about your journey and first conveying, kind of getting down to what's called a log line, that one sentence about what it is that you guys do. That's hard for the person that's up and close and personal. Talk to us about that journey of clearly communicating.
Yeah, I mean, wireless power will be as ubiquitous as wireless data
Mm-hmm.
in 5 to 10 years for sure. You will not have to worry about, at least for your day-to-day electronic devices, how do you plug them in? Do you have the USB-C or the Lightning or the whatever cable it is? It's just going to be all one standard. You don't have to worry about it. You don't even think about it. You don't think about how much battery do I have to use, or do I need to change the batteries in my remote, or I want to put this camera up there, how do I wire it up? You just place it there and it gets its power. It's going to be the same thing as Wi-Fi. When Wi-Fi came out, it was very clunky, and you had these PCM-CIA cards, and it's expensive, it was slow, and everyone was like, why don't you just plug in your computer? Now, if you go to a Starbucks or Pete's or whatever, what have you, Coffee Bean, and you don't have Wi-Fi, you're upset. You're like, what do you mean? Is this a Stone Age here? And it'll be the same. It'll be the same, and no one yet can see this quite clearly. But you will be looking back in a couple of years. It will be unimaginable that it never was like that. It's going to be that experience that Captain Picard will have of like, he wouldn't understand what it means. What do you mean my tricorder is out of power? It's always powered, and this is the world we're going to be living in. And our mission is to enable this. For the company, does that mean that in, let's say, 10 years from now, we'll be doing the same things that we're doing now? Most likely not. The same way the companies that started, let's say, building Wi-Fi boxes in the early 2000s, or that invented Wi-Fi, they're not the ones that are supplying hardware right now. Wi-Fi actually was used in stores initially. Like this whole like 802.11 technology was used for mobile terminals like cash registers, that kind of stuff, so that you can exchange some low-level data. The idea that we would be watching, let's say, streaming video, and that all came later. And I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know there's thousands of applications that I have no idea about. The same way no one knew what would the internet bring, right? When the internet started, you could do things, right? You looked up news or whatever it is, but you have cloud storage now. No one imagined like, okay, great, we're going to store all our pictures in the cloud. What is the cloud? Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't have to worry about it. You look at the same pictures across your devices. So there's going to be lots of applications that once this technology really catches on, that people will think about, that I have no idea yet what that will be. But I can think of a lot right now, and there are markets that have a really, really urgent direct need right now, and those are the ones we're focusing on right now.
So as a CEO of a company with this revolutionary idea or product, what are we talking about? Is this is more of idea, or is it a product?
The product.
Okay.
We can send power over air over several meters, several watts of power. You can send it where you want it. We have some videos. We actually just put some videos on our webpage. You know, you can see a car running around. You can see like light bulbs. We put a power source on a robot, right? So the robot goes around and powers things up as it finds them. So no, the technology is here. Maybe in some aspects it's a little bit like the early Wi-Fi. Not everything is super perfect, but it has a lot of applications already. And in the next decade, we will see the sort of kinks being worked out.
So what is your primary challenge right now? Is it communicating the value of that idea? Is it trying to set up compliance standards for the application of this product, protecting the idea, intellectual property? What is your...
All of the above. Yeah. Everything is difficult and takes work, and there's a solution for everything. There are some regulatory things that happen. There's some application areas where regulators are more or less comfortable about. You know, because it's just different. If you're talking about sending, you know, kilowatts over whatever long distances, that's a different thing than, you know, I don't know, powering a small IoT sensor or something like that. There are challenges in reaching the right people. There are so many companies out there that have a need that they haven't thought about and we haven't thought about, and so creating that channel and communicating this technology exists and have them come and say, oh, this solves a big problem. We had a few of those, right? Mm-hmm. We were at the Consumer Electronics Show on the show floor this year in January, way back when the world was different. Mm-hmm. But we had people stop by. They're like, oh my God, this solves something. You know, this solves a seemingly mundane problem. You know, did you know in a hotel, like what people call about is the remote isn't working, and 99% is because the battery is out. It's really expensive to every time send someone in, fix the battery of something, and then have that done. Right? It's a simple problem, but so the solution, let's say if you charge the battery automatically, wirelessly, it's not the cost of the battery, it's the cost of having to send someone, having a customer that's upset, can't watch whatever the game that they wanted to watch. And that's the price, right? And that's your selling point there, that, you know, your customers will be happy. They will never have to deal with this again. And so, yeah, I mean, there are lots of hurdles. There's COVID. This is business. If business was easy, you and I wouldn't be doing it, right? You know, what's the fun in it if everything was obvious when you start out?
Right.
Yeah.
So what's you know, you get to talk about these things, and people ask you typical questions you hear over and over, but what's the one question you wish people would ask you about this product or the process, or what's in your head and where you're going?
I know the answer. The question is like, is it for real? Yes, it's for real. Yes, it will be here. And yes, I know you don't believe it quite yet. But we are talking to people that are talking about shipping product next year and the year after that. And then the year after that. We've talked to all sorts of companies that have very clear ideas as to how they would integrate this into their products. Is it going to ship next year? Hopefully. Maybe not, but it's going to be here like the year after that. Maybe you won't see it immediately because it's maybe in some warehouse, or it's in some, you know, in some hotel room, or in some store, or maybe you're going to see it very soon. Maybe you won't be charging your cell phone all that much longer with Qi, and again, it's a new technology, so there's some I guess some hurdle almost that you have to overcome. There's some practical things. Let's pick cell phones, right? Apple named their wireless charging technology AirPower that they discontinued. And why did they name it AirPower? Presumably because they have a vision of some sort that you just powered over the air.
Right.
Is it going to roll out in cell phones? Maybe. Cell phone, for example, people may not need that, or they may say, well, I want the 50 megapixel camera rather than this kind of thing. But it'll be in cell phones. It took Qi a couple of years. It'll be in cell phones. It'll be in your smart home devices. It'll be in your wearables. It'll be in the stores for your IoT center. It'll be in your cars. It'll fly your drones eventually. It'll do things that are cumbersome now, and that in the future will just be a setup box. You just put the box there. You don't worry about it. It's there. The same way you don't worry about it, how that power gets to your outlet in the first place. Right? I mean, do you ever think about how, how does that power plant work, and who's making sure, and it's complicated, but you just expect it.
I watched this documentary recently where they brought in a 777, I forget the airline, but it was really cool to watch how they disassembled the whole airline. I mean, the whole airplane. Did you see this documentary?
No, I'm just listening to.
Were you doing this? I don't know, maybe, but it's like they took it all apart and looked at everything. But one of the things that shocked me was the amount of cables running up and down that thing. Is like, how do you keep track of all those cables and where they're going? But then while you're talking, I could see where you could replace miles and miles and miles of heavy cable in just an airplane.
Yeah. It's in an airplane, getting the power to the seats where you have your screen or something that already is pretty painful. Running cables through moving parts like doors or where you have joints and stuff, it's painful. Things break, and then the sensor break, and then someone has to crawl in and find that broken cable. And yes, there's a lot of cables in an airplane. I know there are a lot of cables in a car, and I haven't seen that video, so I don't know how much it was in a plane, but you can have some serious savings there.
I'll send it to you. But yeah, because you think over years and miles, that would be a significant savings to reduce that weight, especially when they're wanting to charge me a little extra for the stupid carry-on I'm bringing on. So what where are you now as far as a company? Are you still taking investors? What can you share with me on the stage of your company, and what can we look for as like the first evidence that this is actually going to market?
Well, you'll probably see evidence sooner rather than later. Again, as I said, like you may see products shipping as early as next year.
Wow.
You may not, but you may at least see the indications of this happening. We're working on deepening our customer relationships. We are talking to. We have a pipeline in all of these sectors. To some extent, we are discovering as we go along what is the most urgent one, what is the sort of like lowest hanging fruit, so to speak, because no one has that solution yet. But there is demand in all of these sectors. Every cell phone company, and I'm not telling you which ones we've talked to, but we've talked to some of them at least.
Yeah,
has thought about this. I've seen resumes of engineers that said, yeah, we worked on this at this cell phone company at this, and then it went off to, headquarters or something and stuff like that. Every high-tech company has definitely looked into this. We talked to them There are some things that they know. There are many things that they know. There are some things they don't know. We are very actively doing business development. We are, I mean, I don't know, we're probably always fundraising, not very specifically, but it doesn't hurt to, to have that conversation started, even if you're not, whatever, raising this particular round. It's a relationship, right? And most of these conversations go, oh, tell me where you're at, and keep me updated and so on. And you tell them some things, you don't tell them all the secrets, and until you want to close the round, but then it becomes much easier because they, let's say if you're talking to a VC, they know, they've talked to you before. We are working on roadmap items in the technology. We're already thinking about, okay, what do we need in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now? We may not be getting to everything all at once because we have limited resources, but all of these things are going on. When I started out, like this is 8 years ago almost. When I first thought about this, I didn't think about this like, okay, this is some sort of cool gadget. After this conversation in the sushi store, I drove back home, and I was living in the Bay Area at the time. The conversation took place down in LA. I drove back home and thought about it. But I had this sort of like, so let me use that word you use, epiphany, of seeing things, what all has to come together to make this happen. And it's a million things. Okay, what is the number one thing that I need to be doing right now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's do that. And so at any given point in time, I have and this is why I see my role, let's say, as a CEO. I don't necessarily see it as a salesperson or as a engineer or as a marketing person. It's all of those things. I don't have to be the best at it, but it's all of those things.
Yeah.
Because there are regulatory questions, there are customers, there are engineering issues, there are operational issues. All of those things just have to be done with in the right way and in the right priority. And there will always be emails that don't get answered right away. There's always going to be something that you wish, but it was, not the most important thing. And right now it's a lot of emphasis focused on ramping, on qualification, on business development, those kinds of things. But again, that's sort of like the most important part of it.
So what, I'm curious if you're concerned about, obviously you have some intellectual property secrets. I would imagine you might be concerned about the security of those, or those being pilfered by some outside entity. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, so the most important secrets, we don't file anything. It's just like, something that, again, we've been working on this for quite a while. So there were some real problems that had to be solved. You just don't talk about it. You know how it's done. The people who have to know how it's done know how it's done, and that's a trade secret. We file some IP. Is there always there's always a little bit of giving and taking, and I don't lose sleep over it. I don't think someone can just sort of like, well, at the end of the day, it's a cost function, really, right? So if you think about it, let's say whatever, the big bad company wants to steal all your secret because they're really mean. So their only purpose is to like get what it is that you have, and you have to be very protective about it. It becomes a function of money, right? I mean, if there's a competitor out there that has infinite resources and can hire 3,000, whatever, of the smartest engineers and the smartest marketeers, at some point you don't have really a chance, right? You just have to make it expensive enough that they say, well, let's just work with these guys, right? But that's always true, right? I mean, could you copy let's call it the Apple iPhone? Of course you could, right? If you had gazillion trillion dollars and you had like 20,000 of the smartest people working on it, you can make a better copy of the iPhone. It's just very expensive to do. And
Yeah.
so it's, let's worry about like what's in our control, and let's protect our secrets. Let's be a little bit tight-lipped about what it is we're doing. But at the end of the day, it's a business risk that you protect in various ways, and you shouldn't lose too much sleep over it. People have tried. I mean, people have tried to develop this technology. Some of them have given up. Some of them may try again. We have something good to offer. We work on all aspects of the technology. I'm an IC designer by training, so I've designed some of the integrated circuits that are on this on some of our ICs. We've done software development algorithms, EM simulations. It's hard to assemble a team, and this is an advantage I think that me and my co-founders have. We have a very broad, like I can design the ICs, design the EM, write the software for it, figure out how it operationally has to do it. I may not be the best at it, but I can solve all of those problems. And so can both of my co-founders. And it's hard to, it takes time to get to that point. And so there's some natural protection there.
Well, Florian, this has been an excellent conversation. You've been a great guest. I really appreciate you being with us. Tell us, if someone's really interested in learning more, where can they connect with you? Where can they look this up?
Sure. People can follow us on LinkedIn. They can follow me on LinkedIn. They can go to our website, guru.inc, guru.inc, or guruwirelessinc.com. Our company was called Auspian.com. All of those things will lead you to the same place. You can find videos of our CS presence on YouTube, Reed Kleinman Smart Hope Solver, so you can see some demos there. We have demos on our website, and take it from there.
Awesome. I'm going to send you a free Kindle copy of my book, The Golden Toilet, so you can read it, and it'll help improve your chances of making it to where you're going, Florian.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Steve. I really enjoyed our conversation. I really enjoyed the questions. From my long answers, those were actually very interesting questions, and you had a very good way of asking, making my brain cells.
Yeah, no, this was fun. I appreciate you so much for being a great guest. And so that's a wrap.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
Mm-hmm.